Hello, my name is Mark, and today I'll be presenting the venture I was associated with throughout the semester, Fusion Esports. Fusion Esports was not so much founded under the guise of solving a problem, but more so through realizing an opportunity within the gaming and esports scene. Relevant to its branding, Fusion encompasses the unity of the English and Spanish communities within the market, and it's more so in a sense an undervalued meets oversaturated to develop an untapped form of content and community. The solution this brings to the premature industry is a sense of unity in a market of different esports and cultures, which have so far been rather divided. Typically, we'll see competing esports organizations sign some of the largest talent from other regions of the world, but rarely are those talents developed beyond face value to create lasting connections between the organization and the talent. Fusion aims to break these barriers. As for what Fusion is, we're an esports organization founded by three lifelong gaming friends in Daniel Mazeo, Hector Ojosco, and Major League Baseball pitcher Ulyss Chassin. As for myself, I was brought on in early 22 to oversee the brand's social media channels, but have progressively gone on to carry out the venture's overall marketing strategy. Currently, Fusion Esports resides in gaming, entertainment, and apparel markets of the esports industry. To break it down further, our gaming sector falls under the category of competitive gaming, competing under major titles such as Fortnite and Valorant, with a roster of talented players all competing for a major prize pool. Our following product offered is a form of entertainment through content curation. Fusion Esports aims to provide a variety of unique gaming-related content, online series, live events, and in real-life content through the merger of our English and Spanish communities with the help of our content creators and professional players. Lastly, Fusion also aims to become a lifestyle brand with a lineup of desirable apparel and merchandise. In terms of the market within the esports industry, it's one which continues to break records. Looking at past and projected revenues, 2021 saw a total of 1.08 billion in revenue. That is up from 2019, which saw just over 957 million, and in 2020, where due to COVID restrictions and a lack of LAN events, saw a temporary drop of just under 947 million. According to sources from Statista, however, esports market's revenue is expected to cap at nearly 1.618 billion by 2024. Furthermore, 2021 was a year for viewership records, where League of Legends 2021 World Championship saw a peak viewership of just over 4 million. Valorant Champions 2021, which is under the same brand as League of Legends, saw a peak viewership of 1.09 million and an average viewership of 469,000, which is not too shabby for a brand new esports scene. As for one genre of esport which has been around for 10 years, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it just saw a peak viewership of 2.75 million for their PGL Major Stockholm in 2021. Evidently, this data only shows that the esports industry is growing and is growing rapidly. Moving on, it's important to look at the target market for the esports industry and inherently Fusion as well. This can be broken down into three customer segments, which are the hardcore, the casual, and the viewer. A hardcore segment can be compared to traditional sports fans and even fall under the 80-20 rule, where 20% of our customers account for 80% of our sales. They're heavily invested in the gaming scene, categorized as early adopters, and actively play and even compete in some of their favorite genres of game. In relation to Fusion, the segment would be regular supporters of our competitive rosters in games we find ourselves in, such as Fortnite and Valorant, and are also frequent viewers of tournaments, as well as regularly show support on social media and are some of our top buyers for apparel and merchandise. As for the casual segment, they're typically slower to adopt new trends within the gaming scene. This segment enjoys playing games with their friends and are simply looking for an enjoyable time within the hobby. The Fusion, they're willing to show support through team merchandise purchases, though they might be a little bit more difficult to entice. And lastly, we have the viewer customer segment. This segment will typically just follow content creators which are housed by a specific organization. Over time, the primary purpose of this segment is to simply help inflate social media metrics through proper utilization of the content creators associated with the brand, through social interactions, media involvement, and by integrating the creator into merchandise offerings to maximize sales. Typically, this segment is very seldom in maintaining a connection with the brand, as opposed to the players or content creators that are connected to the brand itself. In terms of channels, there are two categories to consider, which are social channels and distribution channels. As of right now, distribution channels are still in works as we're developing our apparel line and looking at distributors and manufacturers as well. Social channels, on the other hand, are used, of course, to distribute Fusion's branding, message, and content across several platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Evidently, the month of March was a success for Fusion after a 120% increase in Twitter impressions and also reaching 26,600 followers on the platform. The Fusion Instagram recognized an increase in following and content interaction as well, with a purpose of unique content and the Fusion YouTube channel has enjoyed a consistent output of content as well since the beginning of 2022. Overall, the channel has more than doubled in subscribers as a result. When talking about financials, Fusion has made tremendous strides in improving cost structure and reducing its burn rate. Namely, at one point, we were ambitious about entry into the European region for Fortnite. However, we quickly recognized their flaws and took corrective action in releasing the European team after some time, along with the release of other talent to provide more of a focus on the quality of our player and content lineup rather than quality of it. Our expenses are broken down monthly in terms of our player rosters, content creators, management, staff, and rent expenses for our facility. In addition, variable costs such as video editing, graphics design, and other creative costs are at least limited to a fixed budget. When considering the risk of the esports industry, it's clear that there may be a number of hiccups along the way considering how young of an industry it truly is. When talking about standardization in esports, or rather the lack thereof, it can be daunting to outside investors. There's no standard for tournament organizers of how an event should be structured, prize pools for competition are irregular, and new metas can be introduced due to gamification, which could inherently affect the longevity of an esport. Efforts are being made to mitigate risks to investors, though, through some of the more established esports scenes such as League of Legends or Call of Duty, where standardized leagues have been implemented at a buy-in to provide seasonal consistency. In addition, when considering player investment as a risk, it's fairly similar in nature to traditional sports. Esports organizations take risk on top-tier talent, which may not perform as expected, and you're dealt with little to no return on your investment. Mitigation for this, however, is simply the onboarding of proven talent scouts and management to acquire the best talent for the brand. Alternatively, esports contracts are typically in favor of the organization than the player, and early release of underperforming talent is an option to reduce the team's burn rate. Next, esport longevity is another risk which doesn't quite offer options of mitigation. While some may prove the test of time, such as League of Legends, Dota, Call of Duty, and Counter-Strike, the potential loss in other games can occur due to poor developer support, league support, or simply the release of new games to overlap others. And lastly, the risk on return on investment is also called into question given the average rate of return in the industry is approximately 7 years, which deters many investors looking for something quick. This is also a result of limited revenue streams within the scene. Similar to traditional sports, merchandise sales, media rights, and advertising are some of the industry's main sources of revenue. However, due to being such a young industry, not many have adopted esports yet as a form of entertainment to support. In terms of maintaining sustainability, Fusion Esports looks at 3 options for the future: investment, partnerships, and strategic acquisitions. Through investing, Fusion is actively seeking angel investors or venture capitalists whom view the same vision as we do. Secondly, partnerships are currently the top source of revenue for a majority of esports organizations. Typically, this falls under receiving financial support from certain brands or companies in exchange for marketing and advertising rights through the esports brand's channels. This also falls under the category of using the likeness of the brand name or the brand's talent and players. And lastly, strategic acquisition would be a form of combining differing cash inflows and a reduction of outflow through combined resources. Moving into competition, we can look at what a portion of the North American landscape seems. About 80 to 90% of the market recognize their top 5 competitors, whom each maintain their own unique story and history. Below that are what can be considered the majority market. These brands may fall under recognition of up to 60% of the esports industry, thanks to their massive success in certain esports, but the lack of expansion into competing scenes. Following suit are tiers 2 and 3, whom are known solely for their presence in specific niche market, such as Fortnite, within esports, and have yet to make strides into expanding as well. This takes me to compare to our next slide, the amount of not only South American or Latin region competitors, but the Spanish community altogether. These are major brands within the Spanish scene whom have made major accomplishments similar to that of the North American region. However, they have not yet obtained global success or global recognition. This is a massively untapped market with millions of views in comparison to the North American region, which are solely compressed into these several brands. With this, what Fusion is aiming to achieve here is a reach into an untapped market with the collaboration of a oversaturated market to provide a familiar form of content to a new market which is yet to be unreached. In attempting to reach forward into an untapped community while also achieving a presence in a oversaturated community, Fusion holds the advantage of Spanish networks, which are underappreciated market through the acquisition of very inexpensive, high quality, and high presence talent within the region. Such talent include Nuvia, Neftuni, Westcol, who are massive content creators within the Latin region, whom hold a presence and are objectively collaborating with the Fusion brand and other English creators at the same time. In addition, industry insider knowledge of emerging trends, potential market investments, and early adoption of new esports is a massive advantage that not many other newly emerging esports organizations hold. And lastly, a significant advantage that Fusion Esports holds over a good portion of North American esports organizations, as well as a majority of South American organizations and just Spanish communities altogether, is that we are self-funded. This inherently allows us to perform strategic acquisitions of players and talent that we otherwise would not be able to do so, and grow at a much rapid and sustainable pace than other competing brands. This concludes my presentation for the venture of Fusion Esports. I hope you enjoyed.